Are we going to cut to your shoes on this podcast?
We need to cut to my shoes.
That's one way to do
that's
it.
Right there.
Yep. Welcome to the Menlo Experience. I'm your host, Brad Sant, here with Kyle Bach. And, I was thinking what a difference a year makes. Our first podcast was the end of August last year.
Wow.
When we were talking about changing things.
Are we celebrating a year right now?
We are celebrating a year.
You can't time this any better.
And there goes another car out the door.
That was a shout out for our year.
That was a shout out for our year.
Happy 1 year.
Somebody knows us.
They know us.
Yeah. Listener out there.
Yep.
But a year. I mean, think of all the stuff that's been accomplished in a year. I mean, just talking about changing culture, upping standards, continuing to push for, greatness or, high efficacy of what we do. You look back on a year. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think of the quote that says you always overestimate what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in 5, right? And I would say if we look back on a year, I mean, there's parts of us that, we wanted to achieve this or this or this. So we tend to be overly critical as we look back at just a 12-month window. But when you stop and look at just all of the changes that have gone on over the last 12 months, I mean, it's been a lot. And the culture shift and the team changes, and we've been really, really proud of some new leaders that have stepped up into different responsibilities. And it's been a lot. Hard to believe that it's only been a year.
What do you think the hardest thing we did was, or the biggest lift, in terms of accomplishment?
This might sound crazy, but I think probably the biggest lift was actually us really narrowing in on the core values. When I think about just the biggest picture of what has actually had the just a big ramification out, to the entire company, I think landing on those core values has really, really clarified what we're constantly evaluating towards, what we're pushing towards. Even over lunch today, you and I are talking about speed, right? And for me, it's kind of created kind of our true north, or our North Star that we're pointing towards, and that's impacted, hiring and firing decisions. That's impacted events that we are talking about having and planning. It's impacted our SLA metrics. It's impacted, just really has really shaped our company. And I remember we sat down and, talked through that and kind of argued through different, how we clarify that down and narrow it down. But yeah, it's kind of our landing on our core values. How about you? What would you say?
Well, I echo what you said on that. We were talking over lunch, and once you have that in focus, the rest gets pretty clear. You start to figure out fast. Some areas slower than others, but you start to figure out, is this fit where we're going? Is this fit what we need, and those sorts of things. I think in hardest lift, getting everybody else to see what we could see early on. That just takes time, pushing that throughout the organization. There's things going on. You can't just halt everything. And so it's, some of it's building the bike while you're riding it, if you will. But, I think it took a little while for others to see that. But as we're coming through and really entering into a new school year, those that have been here, I think are, surprised in how well things are going this year. How there's less stressing, less freaking out about things. And it's it's a feeling of we've got this. Not that it's easy, not that it just takes care of itself. We got a lot of people outside today.
Yeah, they're celebrating us. It's the 1 year anniversage.
I can't wait for the fire truck, the parade coming by.
Oh, it's coming. Just give it time.
Confetti. We'll have to open the blinds behind just so the confetti can come down.
That's right.
I think people have finally gotten there, and they're always skeptical at first, and they're seeing what all the hard work and all of the efforts that we put in, and I think that just adds to more buy-in and people just getting excited about where we're going. So, what do you think what was, I guess, the biggest win, or maybe the thing that you thought was going to be really hard, but actually was not too hard?
The thing I thought was going to be hard, but wasn't too hard. To be honest, one of the phone call metrics that we had that was, something that was, when I got here a year ago, was being said was impossible, and that was just answering. That sounds crazy, but it was just answering our phones within 30 seconds of anybody calling in, right, at a certain level of excellence, and really thinking through that from a lens of a teacher's calling, they got an issue, we need to help them out quickly. And, really when I started, it was largely spoken that was impossible. And really Laura and her team have really just stepped up and really have just taken a different perspective and just said, okay, how might it be possible?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Instead of thinking through all the ways that it's not possible, how might we be able to solve this? And we've had a lot of team members that have jumped in from other parts of the company that have even jumped in during peak hours and really just, I thought it was going to be just more of a wild back to school season, but it really has been, pretty standard. I think last week they answered 99% of the calls that came in the week in under 30 seconds. And I think we're averaging around like 8 seconds.
Right. Our busiest weeks of the year. Now, what to your point was not possible. I think you get some people with perspectives that think they can get it done, and again, skeptical at first, but we had push on it.
We had some people that had, truthfully, that were working here last year that just had kind of a defeatist mentality, and just didn't actually believe that it was possible. Yeah. And so removing them from the team, even though there sometimes were people that people liked, but not having them be on the team, kind of, spreading that kind of toxic, doubt, I guess, has really totally changed the mentality of the team. We start hiring differently for that team also. And, in the interview process, we've been saying, if you want an easy place to work, don't come here. A lot of great tech companies in town that are going to be easier to work at. But if you want a challenge and something that's fulfilling, this is your spot.
Right.
And that different mentality shift from people, I think, I sent you a video of Eric Schmidt, that talks about winning and versus comfort. And if you like winning more than you like comfort, this is a great culture for you. If you like comfort more than winning, this isn't the right spot for you. Yeah.
That video, I think is interesting because we're swimming upstream in terms of the world and society. And I'm 100% confident we're going to come out on the better side of this, but the world is really about comfort today, especially this country, I think, has gotten itself into a comfort mentality.
Yeah.
How do you give people a taste of winning in your mind that gets them hooked? Because I really do think everybody wants to do well. Everybody wants to be on a winning team. And I think once you get the taste of it, you do want more of it. But we're paving the way against society right now, somewhat, in terms of getting people on the winning culture and after it.
Yeah. That's a good question. I want to hear your thoughts on this, but I guess I would say, one thing that comes to mind, at least for me, is just team sports. And we've talked about this a lot before, but there's some element of, like, even with my kids right now, like my 9-year-old son, he and I have had a lot of conversations about the teams he's been playing on, because he's played on a couple of different rec teams that truthfully the kids just don't really seem to care about winning. And when he loses a game, he just starts bawling, and he just hates to lose. And so it's been really fun to kind of have conversations with him, because obviously there's the unhealthy side of that, right? But there's something I think that's really healthy that maybe we've pushed against a little bit in our culture, of saying like everybody's winners and everybody's, nobody's a loser and all of those things. And I don't sit there calling my son a loser, obviously. But I do have conversations with him about, losing stinks, doesn't it? Like, and I don't like losing. I like winning. And we even have a song on his playlist, the I Like to Win song. And it's what he wants to play before he goes and play on the radio as we're driving to his games. Like, I want to foster in him that love of winning. And help him understand that winning doesn't just happen by default. Winning, you look at all these Olympics that we just went through and everything, like winning is effort, day in, day out, unseen effort oftentimes, in order to get that 10-second race, that the world sees. And, and they don't see 4th, 5th, 6th place, right? Mm-hmm. They see first place. And, I have a friend who is an Olympic athlete, and there's a confidence that he has, and that he has experience at winning, but he also knows what it's going to take to get to that level. And when you see that at that different type of level, And then when we talk about bringing that into the workplace, right, of having that level of desire to win and compete and be excellent, and that's a tough culture to build, but it's one we're working to build, and it's an exciting culture to be a part of. When we walked in here, Jessica was critiquing my shoes, and I just asked her. I said, "What else do I need to change? In my wardrobe?"
Are we going to cut to your shoes on this podcast?
We need to cut to my shoes.
That's one way to do it.
Right there.
Yep. I feel like we could have had some. Yep.
I can't stretch much more than that.
That's
my
fine.
daughter, who does ballet, gives me a hard time about that, but that's a different conversation.
I didn't see it going that way, but that works. So.
Well, you know, that's what you get here on this podcast. Things you don't see going that direction.
I love that. Yep.
We could sing the jingle. You're going to sing the jingle for our fashion podcast that's starting up there?
I didn't. I missed it. You had it.
Oh,
in your head,
okay.
So.
And we're not going that direction apparently. Then okay.
Critiques.
Yeah, I was getting critiques. I was getting in. We talked about this with game tape, right, from the Chiefs. But I think a lot of times, if someone's not able to take critiques and genuinely want it, right? Like I genuinely asked what else do I need to get critiques on? And I asked, do I need different jeans, right? Like this is good, feedback and input. But I think in the workplace, do we really care about improving at that level and pushing at that level and winning at that level? What do you think people are looking for when they're thinking of a winning culture? How do we build that?
Well, I think first thing that comes to mind is.
By the way, you didn't put your shoes up there, and they're pretty cool. So I don't know if you can get your shoes up on.
I can.
Can you stretch that far?
Look, nobody needs to see us show off. Okay, so
I didn't think so.
Here's what I say when it comes to winning, losing, and the world as it is. We talk about kids, and you can see different personalities in different kids. Certainly I can see that in mine. But it's gotten to be, to your point, a little bit too. Everybody's a winner, but I think it's less about everybody's a winner. That's an issue, but it's also kind of this, let's not deal with the emotions of winning or losing. Let's act like it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think that's terrible. I think one of the best lessons is you to try and lose.
Yeah.
And I always think you find somebody's character when they lose.
Yeah.
If people are winning, that's great. And you can see good character, but you find their true character at the moment of defeat.
Yeah.
Are you getting back up? Are you going to go after it again? Are you going to improve? Or are you just going to resign that that's the best you could do in life? And I'm not here to say which one's better than the other, but I have an idea. And I think getting back up, getting on the horse again, whatever you want to say, it's how you keep progressing. And if you always are avoiding the emotion and the reality of that situation and not wanting to feel like you lost or not wanting to deal with the emotion of a failure or whatever, you can't ever improve. Admitting is the first step, as they say, right?
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to building the winning culture, number one, you got to be able to lose. You have to be able to lose. And if you come in here and you can't lose, that tells me you can't improve because you can't deal with this concept, and you will subconsciously do everything you can to admit you lost or that you failed on something. Being able to do that is the step now to move forward and get better. And so the first question I have is somebody coming in is I'm analyzing what losses have they had? If I'm interviewing or whatever, what losses have you had in your life? What are the hardest, obstacles that you've overcame? And that will tell me somebody's mental orientation can they handle. Because at the end of the day, this is a mental game, right?
Yeah.
You believe you can persist, you can stay with it. It's a mental game. And we were at the Chiefs kickoff luncheon last week, I guess. Yeah. Great event here that the Kansas City Chamber does. But, the Chiefs were up there. I forget who, I think it was Chris Jones. And he talked about getting cussed out by the coaches, right? Right. And he said, that's good. I need it, and that's just the daily, I just built that into my routine is basically what he was saying. But, it was kind of a tongue in cheek way of saying, they're on me. I deserve it, but I'm going to learn and take it and improve. And so,
he's arguably one of the best in his position in the
100%.
League, right? And yet he knows that he needs day in, day out critique, feedback to push him. He needs a push every day.
Right. Well, we all do. That's what a coach is for, right? And even Chris Jones, Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, doesn't matter. You look at that team, and I forget how many, but there's probably 100 coaches in a room, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how many on the chief staff, but they're all there to critique, push, show an outside view, and bring that into the organization. And so it's about always getting better. It's if you roll up and you've won 2 Super Bowls and you think, well, we've got it this year.
Yeah.
You are doomed as an organization because people are coming for you always, right? We talked about the advantage of having kind of a combined enemy.
Yeah.
And so from an organization, we can all rally behind whatever an external enemy is and get behind that. I think you have to have those focuses. You have to be able to deal with the emotions. You have to accept loss.
Why do you
That's
think,
a good thing.
Why do you think people have such a hard time accepting failure or loss or critique like that?
I may have talked about this on a previous podcast, but I think interestingly, what school and early society does is teach you how to fit in. You're always trying to fit in, right? And so you do everything you can to kind of hide your weaknesses, so you can fit in socially, from a get through school, get good grades sort of thing. And at some point in time, hiding all of that flips. And it becomes a drag and a detriment. It's much better if you're building a team for you to say, or me to say, Kyle, I'm not good at following up on things all day, every day. I'm going to drop the ball. You say, hey, I'm really good at that. I got you.
Yeah.
That's what a team is, right? But if you are constantly hiding, avoiding those failures, or wanting to not acknowledge his strengths and weaknesses, you're going to avoid really building the best team possible. That's my thought. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, you and I have talked this week about, that quote from Schmidt, but, it came from another podcast that I like listening to called the All In Podcast. And, and they were talking about how so many CEOs in today's world have had to become less of themselves in order to be a CEO that leads a company. And so they almost kind of dumb down or insulate their true personality in order to lead an organization that's full of a bunch of people that maybe would be turned off by that full expression of that CEO. And so we had a good conversation around that, because I do think that, to your point about like growing up in school and kind of, being told that we all need to be a certain way. We've also, we maybe went through a season where we focused on making sure that nobody got, left behind also. Right. And there was a good thing to that, but there was also maybe a negative thing to that also, that was, not focusing as much on the people that are excelling as well. And so, so the downside, the positive was there, but the downside was there. And, and so not allowing those people to be true, to who they are. And I think when we look at, CEOs and leaders of organizations, when they feel like they have to be a certain way or a certain, type of person that's different than who they truly are on the inside, it stunts the growth. It stunts momentum. It stunts opportunity. It stunts that individual from really maybe the full true expression of who they are and the impact that they can actually have. And, and so you and I have had that conversation a lot, because I asked you, how does that feel? And I know you've shared some things with me on that, but, do you sense that as the leader of an organization that you constantly find yourself changing, or assessing how you come across to people, and maybe not dumbing down, that's the wrong word. Numbing? What's the right word?
I think
throttling,
diluting. Yeah. I mean, 100%. I can certainly relate. And there are socioeconomic, social influences all over the place. And I think the world of social media has influenced those and made all of these really to be easier to fit into whatever group you like, right?
Yeah.
And to where people, I feel like somewhat were in the middle before and maybe had their kind of unique personalities. The world is allowing people to gravitate more to who maybe they truly are, but it's creating more distinct groups that of individuals than those that are in the middle. And so I think as a leader, as a CEO, what you're trying to do is bring all of that together, which is really pretty hard to do, and not upset or offend anybody, but bring together and to meet a common goal. And so, I think from my perspective, I've got a pretty bold personality. I know it, but that's also, I like to run fast. I like speed. We like some of those values, and it's a constant evaluation of whether it makes sense to, whether you need to kind of let the organization catch up or it's ready to run and some of that. So, I think where I'm at, as maybe this is just maturing myself, is just I got to be me and authentically me. And the more in the zone I am, the more we'll attract the right people for the organization that are aligned with our mission. And to your point, I think I agree. Going back and honing in on those values and what and how those align to me, has been a critical step in the organization, because it gives me more true alignment with where we're at and me personally in the organization and driving that. So it's a hard thing. I don't know that it's, I wasn't around 20, 30 years ago as a CEO leader. So it's hard to say how different it truly is, because I could certainly see how this is always the life of a leader. And that's why they say it's lonely at the top. You've got things that you're always wrestling with. And if you're a leader trying to move forward with everybody on the same page and on board all the time, you'll be stuck, because it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And I had a separate conversation this morning. We were talking about, I think this concept of equality and everybody being equal and the same and all that is really good. And I think there's a real noble way to do that in terms of how you treat others. But there's a real trap to that. In my example is if you're trying to go home and the highway is completely congested and everybody's going the exact same speed limit, you can't switch lanes. There's no movement. There has to be, in the world, there has to be people moving at different paces, certain people leading, certain people kind of fitting into their own pace. And that's what really makes the world flow. So part of my concern is the more we try and push everybody to be the same is a disservice, because what makes everybody great is their unique individual qualities. And then I think that's, as we talk about a coach or a leader building a team, then you can take those distinct personalities and those true authentic self representations and bring those to the type of team you're trying to build. And just because somebody's not on our team doesn't mean they're not a great player on a different team.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
But knowing who the people truly are, being our authentic self, I think truly helps build that right team and bring everybody together. So that's my thought. So
it's interesting, because even this, we've talked about like with sports teams right now, and the NFL is so interesting in that. I think just Major League Sports, any major sports league does this, but they've kind of normalized this, cutting of someone from their team. But that doesn't mean that they hate that person or they don't believe in that person, but that's something that's really different in corporate world and business and things like that, saying someone's not the right fit for this team is seen very differently than we let go of a player on our team that didn't make the 53-man roster, but might make the roster, at some different team. Right. And it's this interesting, they've normalized that where it's not a big deal. But to your point, it doesn't mean that we don't believe that person has, a ton of gifts and skills and is a great person. They just might not be the right fit for our team. And that's really, really complicated to get to.
But I think this ties back into winning and losing. I really do. And I struggle with it. I mean, we had this conversation over lunch 2 hours ago, whatever. But, you don't ever, it doesn't feel good to say you're not the right fit or maybe you're not good enough for this team. But back to the winning and losing, people need to be told that.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the individual's responsibility on, am I going to get better to play on this team? Am I going to put in the work? Am I going to put in the work to be an Olympic athlete and compete on this? Or am I going to just hang it up and say, you know what, I've done what I want to do. I've made it to the level I need to be or want to be, if you will. I feel like it's hard to tell people that, but they need to be told that. And then it becomes their decision on whether or not or how they want to handle that.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I think as a leader, it's hard. You don't ever want to tell somebody that, or it doesn't feel good to be the one that delivers that information. I think a strong leader that can truly say that is many, many times respected by individuals. Maybe they need a little separation from the event, but they are. So
I think that's now I was in a conversation with someone yesterday and they were talking about a crucial conversation they had to have, right? And I think that those are the crucial conversations in people's lives that, you control that. You have the ability to control whether the value that we've been talking about with winning versus losing and things like that is dominating, right? Because we even talk about one of our values is not just winning. We want to dominate. And, so we don't want to just be great in what we do. We want to be the best in what we do. We want to do it better than anyone else.
Good.
And if it's really going to be dominating, that push when somebody, to tell somebody they're not dominating right now is actually a loving conversation to have for that person. we've kind of said that's not a loving, as a culture, we've
Right.
kind of said that's
Everybody's
mean.
a winner.
That's
Everybody,
mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Like,
Mhm.
well, that,
Mhm.
like
You're going to
to,
hurt somebody's feelings.
yeah, like, to tell the Bears that they, they stink as a team is, is that's mean. Like, but no, actually it's, when Bieniemy went to Washington last year, right, and pushed them really hard during training camp that they weren't used to, which the Chiefs were used to, Washington starts whining about that, right, and complaining about him as a coach being too hard. That's not the, you're playing for the NFL. Like pushing, for that level of excellence should be expected, right? So I think that there is this level of push that has been seen as unhealthy or bad, but really is actually healthy and good and makes people better. That really take that as a challenge and want to get better.
Yeah. All right. So talking about NFL, talking about Chiefs, we're coming up
Red
on
Wednesday, right?
It's Red Wednesday. Home
Red
opener
Wednesday.
is tomorrow. Kickoff of the NFL season. How you feel it? I mean, we talked about this before, but staying on the top of your game in an organization and in an industry or in the NFL is a really hard task, right?
Yeah. Everybody's gunning for you.
Yeah, everybody is. So, what are your thoughts on the season? How do you think what they're doing and approaching it?
That's a good question. It was really fun being at that event last week and seeing the leaders of the team up there. And as much as I know they all want to win, three-peat, and do something that's never been done before, what I thought was just amazing is that the leaders of the team were up there just laughing and joking around with each other. And, Chris Jones and Kelsey and Mahomes and they were Justin Reed, like they were just all, kind of poking fun at each other and poking fun at coaches. And, I think Spags was called a dictator at one point.
Yes.
I read some article that was blowing that way out of proportion since we were there, but it was, you just saw this, and I think Kelsey mentioned it, but he said, the camp where you're up there for a month, he said, that's really where the team forms and the culture is created of the team. And you could just see these guys are just all bonded together and, and in it together.
He did say that and said to Chris Jones, that's actually if you show up to camp. Yes, which was pretty funny.
That was pretty funny.
Yes.
And Chris said, I did show up this year,
Right.
which was good. I'm glad he was there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's, that team, what I love about it is that you do see this kind of team forming, which is just really cool. So I'm excited for that. Something that's never been done before. We got a chance at it. It's going to be tough, real tough because we've got everybody vying against us. But I have to say, the wide receiver room that we got going
we're
this year,
fast this year. We're really fast.
Speed, man. We got speed, and that's exciting. When they had Worthy in for like one drive, in preseason, and he just smoked somebody long. You're like, all right, we're gonna be okay.
We'll be all right. Yep.
Yeah, that'll open it up for Pacheco. I'm excited. How are you feeling about it? What's your prediction on the score for tomorrow?
Tomorrow's going to be an interesting game.
And this will probably come out after that.
Yeah, this will be out after that. So, what I'd like to say is maybe 27-20 Chiefs.
Okay.
So
27-20.
Yeah. But, I think they have the right approach. And I always refer or relate to kind of that situation. How does it apply to us? What are the lessons to take away from it? And, they talked about, they're not really talking three-peat.
Yeah.
They're disciplined. At the end of the day, at least from what they vocally say, is they're just bring a core discipline to their job and what they do and a high level of performance on that. And I think things generally, we've talked about this before, and I believe this strongly, is that differences in business are made up in these nuances, right? Little subtle things. It's not these major events. It's not these major events. And every now and then you've got some random thing that would kind of run in the face of that. But it's about doing the little things every day, over and over, even when they suck, even when you don't want to get up and go to work, when you don't want to get up and work out, you don't want to go to training camp in 102 degree weather, getting up, doing it. And, I think they said it well, which is they want practice to be harder than a game, right? And that's the way they approach it. So that when you just show up, you do it. And I think the same thing with military training and running that over and over. I've never been a part of that. I appreciate all of our service members that have. But at the end of the day, that is so when you show up, it's instinctual. You just know what to do. And I think the more that we can do that, the more the Chiefs do that, the more any great team can do the day in, day out things that are not fun and don't get any glory,
Yeah.
You don't get a W on the wall. That's what prepares you for those times when it gets tough, that when it's late in the season and you're tired. So I think they're approaching that right in that way and thinking about it just from the basics.
Yeah.
So people overlook the basics so much.
The fundamentals.
Fundamental. All right. Any closing thoughts for, we're coming in kind of full year. We're starting, I guess, if you will, we're starting our second year.
Shout out to the Horn out there.
Horn,
Perfect.
yeah, more people we know.
That's right. 1 year.
Yep.
You mentioned 1 year again. It's coming back.
I won't do it again. But
That's right.
yeah. So what do you think? Coming into the end of the year, what are the lessons you've learned that you're taking to year two?
I'm excited. I think that I really look back on this 1 year, and even though the quotes, you overestimate what you can do in a year, I think we achieved a lot in a year. And I think that, I'm excited to see the culture continue to shift, the team continue to come together here, and excited just for really a rapid expansion for year two. So how about yourself?
I agree. I think one of the best things we've got moving is additional longevity.
Yeah.
You and your role, you've got a year in. You certainly understand a lot more things as we are. We've got momentum building everywhere, right? And so it takes all of us to remain disciplined on that, and as leaders to keep pushing people further than they think they can go. But I'm excited, and it just energy builds on itself. So we'll see how it goes. We've got these on record now with these podcasts, so we'll be able to talk about it plenty, I'm sure.
Yeah.
For now, this has been the Menlo Experience. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.